The silverware shouldn't feel this heavy, but after 8 hours on her feet, everything weighs more than it should. The water pitchers, the dinner plates, the smile Emma Torres has worn since her shift started at noon. It's Thursday night at Sera Bianca, one of those upscale Italian restaurants in downtown Chicago where the chandeliers cost more than most people's cars, and the wine list requires a sommelier to decode. Emma has worked here for 11 months, long enough to know which tables tip well, which customers are kind, and exactly how to disappear into the background when necessary. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So, if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Disappearing is a skill she's perfected over the past year. Soft voice, efficient movements, eyes that meet but don't hold contact. She's learned that being forgettable keeps you safe, that drawing attention, even positive attention, can lead into complications she can't afford. The dinner rush is finally slowing when she approaches table 7 with their entrees. A family of 4 parents in their 40s, 2 teenage daughters scrolling through their phones between courses. Safe, predictable. The kind of table where conversation flows easily and no one scrutinizes the waitress beyond whether their water glass is full. "Excuse me," the father says as Emma sets down his ossobuco with practiced precision. "This isn't what I ordered." Emma's pulse quickens, but her smile holds. "I'm so sorry, sir. What did you order?" "The veal marsala. This is clearly ossobuco." His voice carries that particular edge of irritation that comes from people used to being right, used to being heard. "Let me check your order, sir." Emma pulls out her notepad, scans the entry. Her handwriting clearly shows ossobuco for seat 1, but the customer is always right, even when they're wrong. "I apologize for the confusion. I'll have the kitchen. Prepare the veal marsala right away. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you." "No." The father's hand slams down on the table, not violently, just emphasis, just a gesture to punctuate his frustration. But Emma's body reacts before her mind catches up. She flinches, hard, violently, steps back so fast she nearly collides with the server station behind her, her breath catching in her throat, arms coming up instinctively in a protective gesture that's pure muscle memory, pure trauma response that she can't control no matter how many months pass. The restaurant doesn't stop. The other diners don't notice. The teenage daughters don't look up from their phones. But the father notices, his expression shifting from irritation to confusion to something that might be embarrassment. I'm sorry," he stammers, lowering his hand slowly like he's approaching a frightened animal. "I didn't mean to scare you. I was just trying to make a point about the order." Emma forces herself to breathe, to lower her arms, to reconstruct the professional mask that slipped for just a moment. "It's fine. I'll get that fixed right away." Her voice sounds hollow even to her own ears. She turns to flee to the kitchen, to anywhere that isn't here, and that's when she sees him. Alessandro Moretti sits at the bar, same spot he's occupied every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 weeks. She's noticed him before impossible not to. He's the kind of handsome that draws eyes, tall, probably 6'3", with dark hair touched with silver at the temples, olive skin, and a face that could have been carved from Carrara marble. He always wears suits that fit too perfectly, always arrives with men who position themselves throughout the restaurant with military precision, always gets treated with a deference by the owner that suggests he's more than just a regular customer. But right now, Alessandro Moretti isn't eating his usual risotto nero. He's staring at her with an intensity that makes her skin prickle. His dark eyes, so brown they're nearly black, are fixed on her face, and there's something in his expression that Emma can't quite read. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. And underneath that, something harder. Something that looks like barely contained rage. Not at her. At the situation. At whatever he just witnessed. Their eyes meet for a heartbeat. Maybe 2. Emma feels exposed, like he can see through her carefully constructed armor to the scared, broken thing underneath. Then she tears her gaze away and practically runs to the kitchen. The kitchen is chaos. As always, chefs shouting orders in Italian and English, pans clanging, the hiss of oil hitting hot metal. Emma leans against the wall by the walk-in freezer, trying to calm her racing heart, trying to stop her hands from shaking. "You okay?" Marco, the line cook, who's always been kind to her, glances over from where he's plating pasta. "You look pale." "I'm fine. Just customer wanted veal marsala instead of ossobuco." Can you rush one? On it. He doesn't push, doesn't ask why she looks like she's seen a ghost. That's one of the things Emma appreciates about Marco. He minds his business. She splashes cold water on her face at the prep sink, takes 3 deep breaths the way her therapist taught her. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. It's supposed to reset her nervous system, trick her body out of fight or flight mode. Most days it works. Today isn't most days. When she returns to the dining room 15 minutes later with the correct entree, the father apologizes again. His wife touches Emma's arm gently, too gently. The way people touch trauma survivors when they've suddenly realized they're in the presence of damage, and says they're adding an extra 20% to the tip. Emma smiles, thanks them, and feels the weight of Alessandro Moretti's gaze tracking her every movement across the restaurant. The rest of her shift passes in a blur of mechanical efficiency. She delivers food, refills drinks, processes payments, moves through the dining room like a ghost. Alessandro remains at the bar until closing, nursing what looks like the same whiskey for 3 hours. He doesn't order dinner, doesn't speak to anyone except his men, when they lean in occasionally to murmur something Emma can't hear. But he watches, constantly, and Emma can feel the weight of that attention like a physical thing pressing against her skin. At 10:30, she cashes out with Rosa, the bartender who's worked at Sarah Bianca for 15 years and knows every secret the restaurant holds. Careful with that one, Rosa says quietly, nodding toward Alessandro. He's been watching you all night, I noticed. Emma counts her tips, $240, good for a Thursday. She needs every penny. The studio apartment in Pilsen costs $1,200 a month. Therapy is $120 per session, and she's still paying down the credit card debt from when she was too afraid to work. Too broken to leave her apartment for 3 months after. She cuts that thought off. Doesn't go there, not at work. Alessandro Moretti, Rosa continues, her voice dropping even lower, owns half the South Side. His family's been in Chicago for 4 generations. Legitimate businesses on the surface, but everyone knows what's underneath. Mafia. Emma doesn't make it a question. That's not a word people use anymore. But yes, traditional organized crime. His father ran the territory before him. Alessandro took over 12 years ago when his father had a heart attack in his office at the restaurant he owned, Terrazza di Stel. Alessandro was only 28, but he consolidated power fast. Smart, ruthless when necessary, but not needlessly cruel. Rosa pours herself an amaretto, offers one to Emma, who declines. Why are you telling me this? Because he's never paid attention to staff before. Never. He comes in, eats his meal, conducts his business meetings in the private room upstairs, and leaves. Polite but distant. Tonight he spent 3 hours watching you like you're the most important thing in this restaurant. Rosa's dark eyes are serious, concerned. That means something, Emma. In his world, attention always means something. Emma's stomach twists. I didn't do anything. I know. But he saw something tonight. That reaction you had with Table 7, I saw it too. And if I noticed from behind the bar, he definitely noticed from where he was sitting. Rosa squeezes Emma's hand. Just be careful. Men like Alessandro Moretti, they operate by different rules, and getting involved with them, even peripherally, can be dangerous. Emma changes in the staff bathroom, trading her black uniform for jeans and an oversized gray sweater that hangs off one shoulder. She pulls her dark hair out of its tight, the bun, lets it fall in waves around her face. At 26, she looks younger without makeup, which is both blessing and curse. Young enough that people underestimate her. Young enough that she still gets carded buying wine she can't afford. The night air hits like a wall when she steps out the back entrance. March in Chicago is unpredictable. Yesterday was 50 degrees, today barely cracked 35, and the wind off Lake Michigan cuts through her coat like it's made of paper. She's halfway to the bus stop when she hears footsteps behind her. Not rushed, not threatening, just there, present in a way that makes the hair on her neck stand up. Emma doesn't turn around, doesn't run, just keeps walking. Heart hammering, hand already reaching for her phone. Miss Torres. The voice stops her dead. Low, slightly accented Italian. She thinks with an authority that makes ignoring it feel impossible. She turns slowly. Alessandro Moretti stands 10 feet away, hands in the pockets of his charcoal suit jacket, expression unreadable in the amber glow of streetlights. He's alone, which surprises her. Men like him usually travel with security. Then she notices the black SUV idling at the curb, engine running, tinted windows concealing whoever's inside. Not alone, just giving the illusion of it. Mr. Moretti. Her voice comes out steadier than she feels. Can I help you? I wanted to make sure you got home safely. He doesn't move closer, doesn't invade her space, just stands there like a statue, like he has all the time in the world. It's late. This neighborhood isn't safe for a woman walking alone. I take the bus. The stop is 2 blocks away. I've done it for almost a year without incident. 11 months. He corrects gently. You started working at Sarah Bianca last April. April 19th, specifically. The fact that he knows this should terrify her. Instead, Emma feels something else, a strange combination of exposure and recognition, like being seen by someone who actually bothers to look. Why are you following me? I'm not following you. I'm ensuring your safety. There's a difference. Is there? She crosses her arms against the cold and the vulnerability of this conversation. Both involve tracking someone without their permission. Alessandro's lips quirk in what might be the ghost of a smile. You're not wrong, but my intentions are protective, not predatory. What happened tonight in the restaurant was nothing. Emma interrupts, voice sharp. A misunderstanding. An overreaction. It's fine. It wasn't fine. His voice is soft but absolute. That man at table 7 raised his hand and you flinched like you were expecting to be hit. That's not nothing, Miss Torres. That's trauma. And in my experience, trauma that visible usually has a recent source. Emma's throat tightens. She wants to deny it, to laugh it off, to rebuild the walls he's somehow seeing through. But the way he's looking at her, not with pity, but with a kind of knowing recognition that suggests he's seen this before, understood it on a level that goes beyond surface observation, makes lying feel pointless. What do you want from me? She asks instead. To make sure no one hurts you again. The simplicity of that statement lands like a punch. Not a question, not a negotiation, just a declaration of intent that brooks no argument. You don't know me. You don't know anything about my life, or what I've been through, or what I need. Then tell me. He takes a single step closer, still respectful of her space, but close enough that she can see the scar above his left eyebrow, the silver threading through his dark hair, the intensity in those impossibly dark eyes. Because what I saw tonight was a woman who's been hurt badly enough that a stranger's hand on a table made her body react like it was under attack, and that his jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, that I don't tolerate. It's not your business to tolerate or not tolerate. In my territory, it is absolutely my business. There it is, the truth underneath the protective veneer. This isn't about her specifically. It's about control, about territory, about maintaining order in a world he clearly sees himself as responsible for governing. Emma should walk away. Should tell this dangerous man in his expensive suit that she doesn't need his protection or his interference. Should get on the bus and go home to her tiny apartment and never think about Alessandro Moretti again. Instead, she hears herself say, his name was David Chen. We were together for 2 years. He put me in the hospital twice before I finally left. The restraining order expired 6 months ago, and he's been very careful to stay just on the legal side of harassment ever since. 3 weeks ago, he found out where I work. He hasn't come inside yet, but I've seen him watching from across the street twice now. The words tumble out like confession, like she's been waiting for someone to ask right questions. That's why I flinched tonight. Not because that man was threatening me, because my body hasn't learned the difference yet between normal gestures and actual danger. Alessandro listens without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each sentence. When she finishes, the silence stretches between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with implications she doesn't fully understand. David Chen, he repeats slowly, like he's filing the name away in some mental database. Where does he live? I don't know. We moved in together, but after I left, he stayed in the apartment. I don't go anywhere near Wicker Park anymore. What does he do for work? Graphic design, freelance, mostly. Sometimes contract work for agencies. Emma wraps her arms tighter around herself. Why are you asking me this? Because men who put women in hospitals need to understand there are consequences. Alessandro pulls a business card from his jacket pocket, extends it toward her. My direct number. If David Chen shows up at the restaurant, if he approaches you anywhere, if you feel unsafe for any reason, you call me immediately. Emma stares at the card without taking it. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, just a phone number and a name. No business title, no address. The kind of card that conveys power through its very minimalism. I can't accept this. Why not? Because accepting help from you means entering your world. And your world, she finally meets his eyes. Your world is dangerous in different ways than David was. Maybe more dangerous, because at least with David I knew what I was dealing with. You're not wrong, Alessandro acknowledges. My world is dangerous. But the crucial difference is choice. David took yours away. I'm offering to give it back. You call me or you don't, that's your decision. You accept protection, or you handle it alone, also your decision. But having the option, having someone who will intervene if necessary, that's power you didn't have before. He steps forward, places the card in her hand, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment, warm despite the cold, steady despite the implications of this exchange. I'm not asking you to trust me, Miss Torres. I'm asking you to trust yourself to make the right choice when the moment comes. Then he turns and walks back to the SUV, movements fluid and controlled. The door opens before he reaches it, and he disappears inside. The vehicle pulls away from the curb with the quiet confidence of expensive machinery, leaving Emma standing on a Chicago sidewalk holding a business card that feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. She should throw it away, should go home, take a shower, try to sleep, and forget this entire encounter happened. Instead, she pulls out her phone and types the number into her contacts. Doesn't attach a name, just saves the digits under EM emergency, or maybe something else she's not ready to acknowledge. The bus arrives 7 minutes later. Emma climbs aboard, finds a seat near the back, and watches the city blur past the windows. Somewhere in that maze of lights and shadows, Alessandro Moretti is driving through territory he considers his own, conducting business she can only imagine, operating by rules that have nothing to do with law and everything to do with power. And somehow, impossibly, she's just become part of his world whether she intended to or not. Emma doesn't sleep that night. She lies in her studio apartment staring at the ceiling, watching headlights from passing cars paint shifting patterns across the cracked plaster, thinking about business cards and dark eyes and the way Alessandro Moretti said consequences, like it was both promise and threat. At 3 a.m., she gives up on sleep and makes tea. The apartment is small, 400 square feet, that somehow costs $1,200 a month because it's Chicago, and anything remotely safe costs a fortune. But it's hers. Her name on the lease, her furniture, they bought secondhand from Craigslist. Her books on the shelf, her life rebuilt piece by careful piece after David. The restraining order paperwork sits in a folder on her desk. She pulls it out, reads through the familiar words. David Chen must maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Emma Torres at all times. No contact via phone, email, text, or social media. No contact through third parties. Violation will result in immediate arrest and prosecution. It had felt powerful when the judge signed it 18 months ago. Proof that the system worked, that there were consequences for men who used their fists instead of words. Then it expired 6 months ago, and Emma learned that restraining orders are only as effective as the person they're meant to restrain chooses to let them be. David had been smart about it. No direct contact, no obvious violations. Just showing up in places he knew she'd be. Standing across the street from Sarah Bianca, watching, following her bus route but staying, far enough back that it could be coincidence. Sending flowers to her apartment with no card, roses, always roses, because he knew she hated them after he'd sent them the morning after the first time he put her in the emergency room. The police called it harassment, but not legally actionable. Her lawyer said they could file for a new restraining order, but it would be difficult to prove pattern without concrete evidence. Her therapist said to document everything, vary her routine, trust her instincts. None of it made her feel safe. Emma picks up her phone, pulls up the contact listed only as M. Her thumb hovers over the call button. It would be so easy. To let someone else handle this, to accept protection from a man who clearly has the resources and willingness to make problems disappear. But she knows what that costs. Has learned through bitter experience that accepting help from powerful men always comes with strings attached, obligations unstated but understood, debts that accrue interest you can't afford to pay. She puts the phone down, makes more tea, watches the sky slowly lighten from black to gray to the pale blue of dawn breaking over Chicago. By the time her alarm goes off at 7, she's made a decision. She won't call Alessandro Moretti, won't pull him deeper into her mess, won't trade one form of danger for another, no matter how appealing the alternative might seem. That resolution lasts exactly 11 hours. Emma's Friday shift starts at noon. She takes the bus to Sarah Bianca, arrives 15 minutes early like always, changes into her uniform in the staff bathroom. Black slacks, white button-down shirt, the apron with the restaurant's logo embroidered in silver thread. She ties her hair back in a neat bun, applies minimal makeup, transforms herself into the invisible waitress, who moves through rooms without drawing attention. The lunch shift is steady but manageable. Businessmen ordering expensive wines, tourists trying to pronounce Italian menu items, regulars who know exactly what they want. Emma navigates it all with practiced efficiency, collecting tips that go into the envelope she keeps in her locker. Rent money, therapy money, emergency fund that never seems to grow fast enough. At 2:30, during the lull between lunch and dinner service, she takes her break outside. The alley behind Sarah Bianca isn't scenic dumpsters and loading docks, and the particular smell of restaurant waste that no amount of cleaning ever quite eliminates, but it's private. A place where staff can smoke or make phone calls, or just breathe without performing service smiles. Emma leans against the brick wall, closes her eyes, lets the March sunshine warm her face despite the cold air. She's thinking about her therapy appointment next week, about what she'll tell Dr. Martinez about last night's encounter with Alessandro when she hears the footsteps. Not Rosa coming out for a cigarette. Not Marco taking a break from the kitchen. These footsteps are deliberate, purposeful, moving with the particular rhythm of someone who's been waiting for this moment. Emma's eyes snap open, and there he is. David Chen stands 20 feet away at the mouth of the alley, blocking her exit back to the restaurant. He looks the same as he did 18 months ago, handsome in that clean-cut way that had first attracted her, with his designer glasses and carefully styled black hair, and the smile that had once made her feel special, chosen. Now it just makes her stomach clench with familiar dread. Emma. He says her name like a greeting, like they're old friends running into each other by chance. You look good. Healthy. She doesn't respond. Her hand is already moving toward her phone in her apron pocket, fingers closing around it, pulling it out with movements that feel slow and dreamlike despite her racing pulse. I just want to talk, David continues, taking a step closer. Then another. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. You. Owe me that much after the way things ended. I don't owe you anything. Emma's voice comes out steadier than she feels. And there's a restraining order. That expired 6 months ago. You know that. I know that. Another step. We're both adults. We can have a civil conversation. I don't want to have a conversation. I want you to leave. See, that's the problem with you, Emma. You never wanted to actually work through things. Just ran away the moment it got difficult. His voice carries that familiar edge now. The one that used to signal the shift from persuasion to anger. 2 years together and you threw it away because of a couple of arguments that got heated. That's not how relationships work. A couple of arguments. That's what he calls the broken rib, the concussion, the bruises she'd covered with makeup and long sleeves and lies that got thinner each time she told them. Emma's thumb finds the contact labeled EM and hits call without consciously deciding to do it. The phone is already dialing as David takes another step closer. Close enough now that she can smell his cologne, the same sandalwood scent that used to seem sophisticated, but now just smells like fear. Put the phone down, Emma. Who are you calling? The police? I'm not breaking any laws. I'm just talking to you in a public alley. The call connects. 1 ring, 2. David's hand reaches out, not touching her but close enough that her body remembers, muscles tensing for impact that hasn't come yet but feels inevitable. Emma. Alessandro's voice comes through the phone, sharp and alert despite the fact that it's barely 3 in the afternoon on a Friday. What's wrong? She doesn't have to explain, doesn't have to say anything except, he's here, the alley behind Sarah Bianca. David's expression changes as he realizes she's not calling 911, that whoever's on the other end of that phone is someone who prompts immediate concern in her voice. Who is that? You seeing someone new? Already? That was fast. Don't move. Alessandro's voice is steel wrapped in silk. Don't engage with him. I'm 3 minutes away. Can you stay safe for 3 minutes? I think so. You think or you know. David takes another step, and Emma backs up until her shoulders hit the brick wall. I know. Good girl. Stay on the line with me. David's eyes narrow. Seriously? You're calling some guy to rescue you instead of just having a conversation like an adult? This is pathetic, Emma. You used to be stronger than this. Strong enough to leave you. The words come before she can stop them, powered by 18 months of therapy and anger, and the particular courage that comes from knowing help is 3 minutes away. David's face flushes red. You didn't leave. You ran. Like a coward. After everything I did for you, all the ways I supported you, you just... The screech of tires cuts him off. A black SUV, The same one from last night comes around the corner into the alley so fast it has to brake hard to avoid the dumpsters. The doors open before it fully stops, and Alessandro emerges with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to moving quickly when situations demand it. He's dressed differently today. Dark jeans, black Henley, leather jacket. Less businessman, more something else. Something dangerous that he usually keeps hidden under expensive suits and civilized veneer. Two men exit the SUV behind him. One is tall and broad-shouldered with silver threading through his dark hair. Rosa had pointed him out once, called him Marco Santoro, Alessandro's head of security. The other is younger, maybe 30, with the kind of face that could blend into any crowd and the watchful eyes that suggest he never actually does. Alessandro walks directly to Emma, positions himself between her and David with the kind of territorial certainty that makes the dynamic immediately clear. He doesn't touch her, doesn't even look at her, just creates a physical barrier between her body and David's presence. David Chen. Not a question. A statement loaded with information that suggests Alessandro has spent the last 12 hours learning everything there is to know about Emma's ex-boyfriend. David's bravado falters. Who are you? The person who's going to explain something very important to you. Alessandro's voice is conversational, almost pleasant, which somehow makes it more threatening than if he'd been shouting. Emma Torres is under my protection. That means you don't speak to her, you don't approach her, you don't exist in any space she occupies. Is that clear? This is between me and Emma. It's personal. It's not your business. Everything that happens in my territory is my business. Alessandro takes a single step forward and David instinctively steps back. But let me make this more specific. You put her in the hospital. Twice. Broken ribs, concussion, bruises that took weeks to fade. Then you spent 18 months making her feel unsafe. Harassment that stayed just legal enough to avoid consequences. David's face has gone pale. I don't know what she told you, but hospital records don't lie. Police reports don't lie. The restraining order you violated 3 times before it expired doesn't lie. Alessandro's expression hasn't changed. Still calm, still conversational, but something in his eyes has gone cold. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave Chicago. Today. You're going to find employment somewhere else. I don't care where, as long as it's at least 500 miles away. And you're never going to contact Emma again. Not through phone, not through email, not through showing up in alleys behind her workplace. You can't tell me where to live. This is America. I have rights. You do have rights. Alessandro nods thoughtfully. You also have 2 hands that you used to hurt someone I've decided to protect. And I'm explaining very clearly what happens if you choose to exercise your rights, in ways that threaten her safety. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mr. Chen? The threat is implicit but unmistakable. David hears it. Emma sees the moment it registers, sees fear replace anger in his expression. This is insane. You can't just threaten people because I'm not threatening you. Alessandro's smile is cold and precise. I'm explaining consequences, cause and effect. You stay in Chicago, you continue harassing Emma, and unfortunate things tend to happen to people who make those choices in my territory. You leave, you build a life elsewhere, you forget Emma exists, and you live without any interference from me. Those are your options. Choose wisely. Marco Santoro steps forward, phone in hand. There's a 4 p.m. flight to Denver. We've taken the liberty of purchasing you a one-way ticket. We've also contacted 3 graphic design firms in Colorado who are willing to interview you next week. Consider it a fresh start. You can't force me onto a plane. We're not forcing you to do anything. Alessandro's voice remains perfectly calm. We're providing you with options and information so you can make an educated decision. The flight leaves in 90 minutes. Or you can stay in Chicago and see what happens when you continue making choices that threaten someone under my protection. Free will, Mr. Chen. You get to choose. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. David looks at Emma for the first time since Alessandro arrived. She sees something in his expression, not love, not even obsession, just the particular frustration of someone who's lost control and knows it. This isn't over. Yes, Alessandro says quietly. It is. Marco and the other man move to flank David, not touching him, but making the escort clear. David has 2 choices: walk to the SUV voluntarily or be moved there by force. He chooses the former, his dignity already in shreds. As they guide him toward the vehicle, David calls back over his shoulder. You'll regret this, Emma, when you figure out what kind of man you've gotten involved with. You'll regret all of it. Then he's in the SUV and they're pulling away, leaving Emma alone in the alley with Alessandro Moretti and the implications of what just happened. The adrenaline that's been keeping her upright suddenly drains away. Emma's legs go weak, and she slides down the brick wall until she's sitting on the cold concrete, arms wrapped around her knees, breathing too fast despite her attempts to control it. Alessandro crouches in front of her, maintaining distance but present in a way that feels grounding rather than overwhelming. "Breathe with me," he says quietly. "In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Can you do that?" She nods, can't speak, focuses on matching her breathing to his counted rhythm. Slowly, gradually, the panic subsides. Enough that she can think again, can process what just happened. "Did you really buy him a plane ticket?" "Yes." "And set up job interviews?" "Yes. Marco has contacts everywhere. It's not difficult to arrange." "And if he doesn't go? If he gets off that plane in Denver and comes right back?" Alessandro's expression doesn't change, but something in his eyes hardens. "Then we have a different conversation, one with more permanent consequences." Emma should be horrified, should be questioning what kind of man solves problems this way, what permanent consequences actually means in his world. Instead, she feels something loosen in her chest, a tension she's been carrying for 18 months finally releasing. "Thank you." The words come out barely above a whisper. "I know I shouldn't be thanking you for threatening someone, but you're thanking me for making you safe. That's different." He stands, offers her his hand. She takes it and he pulls her to her feet with careful strength. David Chen was never going to stop on his own. Men like him don't accept rejection. They reframe it as temporary obstacles to overcome. Someone needed to make it clear that the obstacle was insurmountable. "And you're that someone." "In my territory, yes." There's that phrase again. My territory. Like Chicago is a kingdom, and he's the ruler who determines what happens within its borders. It should feel archaic, patriarchal, offensive. Instead, it just feels true, a statement of reality rather than preference. "I need to get back to work." Emma straightens her apron, touches her hair to make sure the bun is still neat. "My break ended 10 minutes ago. Take the rest of the day off. I can't afford to lose a shift." "You won't." Alessandro pulls out his phone, types something quickly. "I'm texting the owner. You'll be paid for the full shift. Go home, rest, process what happened. Come back tomorrow when you're ready." "Mr. Moretti, I can't keep accepting." "Alessandro," he interrupts gently. "If I'm intervening in your life this extensively, you should use my first name." Alessandro. His name feels strange in her mouth, intimate despite the formality of their actual relationship. "I can't keep accepting help without understanding what you want in return. I want you to be safe. That's not transactional. That's just what should happen." He pockets his phone, studies her face with that same intensity from last night. "But if you need there to be an exchange to feel comfortable accepting protection, then consider it payment for all the times I've watched you work, and appreciated the grace with which you navigate difficult customers and long shifts, and the general chaos of service industry work. You make the restaurant better by being in it. That has value." It's a pretty speech. Emma wants to believe it's true, but she's learned that pretty speeches from powerful men usually obscure uglier truths underneath. "What do you actually want from me?" Alessandro is quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he says, "Right now, I want you to go home and feel safe there for the first time in 18 months. Tomorrow, I want you to come to work without looking over your shoulder. Next week, next month, I want you to rebuild whatever life David Chen stole from you. That's what I want, Emma. Your safety and your freedom, and your ability to exist without fear." He pauses. "If that eventually leads to you trusting me enough to have dinner with me somewhere that isn't this restaurant, I won't object. But it's not a requirement. It's just hope." The honesty of that admission catches her off guard. There's vulnerability in it, in the way he's making his interest clear, while simultaneously giving her power to reject it without consequence. "I don't know how to date someone like you." "Someone like me?" "Someone who solves problems by putting people on planes and making threats that aren't technically threats and operating in a world where violence is always an option." "I'm not asking you to date that part of me." Alessandro's voice is soft. "I'm asking if you might want to know the rest. The man who reads Dante in Italian before bed, who visits his mother's grave every Sunday with fresh flowers, who spent 5 years working in restaurant kitchens before taking over his father's business because he believes you can't run something you don't understand from the ground up." He takes a step back, giving her physical space to match the emotional space he's trying to create. But Emma, I'm not asking for that decision today. Today you just survived a confrontation with someone who hurt you badly. That's enough for one day. He's right. She's exhausted suddenly, adrenaline crash hitting like a wave. I should go. Marco will drive you home. I can take the bus. Emma. Just her name, but weighted with gentle insistence. Let me do this. Let me ensure you get home safely after what just happened. You can take the bus tomorrow, next week, whenever you want. Today, let me provide this. She's too tired to argue, nods her acceptance, and lets him guide her toward where Marco waits with another SUV. Apparently, Alessandro travels with multiple vehicles, or maybe they're just everywhere in his territory, ready when needed. The drive to her apartment in Pilsen is quiet. Marco doesn't try to make conversation, just navigates Chicago traffic with the competence of someone who knows these streets intimately. Emma watches the city pass outside tinted windows and thinks about plane tickets and job interviews and the way Alessandro had positioned his body between hers and David's, like it was the most natural thing in the world. When they reach her building, Marco walks her to the door, waits while she unlocks it, then hands her a different business card than the one Alessandro gave her last night. My direct line, he says. Alessandro wants you to have multiple contacts. If you can't reach him, call me. Day or night, doesn't matter. Your safety is now part of my job description. Emma takes the card, adds it to the growing collection of emergency numbers for men whose profession is violence. Does this happen often? Women needing protection? We protect a lot of people for a lot of reasons. But Alessandro taking personal interest? Marco shakes his head. That's rare. Actually, that's unprecedented in the 12 years I've worked for him. Whatever he sees in you, it's significant. He leaves before Emma can formulate a response to that. She climbs the 3 flights to her apartment, locks the door behind her, and finally allows herself to fall apart. She cries for 20 minutes. Hard, ugly crying that comes from a place deeper than just today's confrontation. From 18 months of fear, from 2 years before that of walking on eggshells, from the particular exhaustion of never feeling safe in your own life. When the tears finally stop, Emma washes her face, changes into sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, and does something she hasn't done in months. She orders dinner delivery instead of cooking, spends money she probably shouldn't on Thai food from the place down the street that delivers, pours herself a glass of wine from the bottle that's been sitting unopened in her fridge for 6 weeks because drinking alone felt like admitting defeat. She eats on her couch, watches trashy reality TV, and tries not to think about dark eyes and protective instincts and the way Alessandro Moretti had said her name like it mattered. Her phone buzzes at 9 p.m., unknown number, but she knows before checking that it's him. David Chen boarded the 4 p.m. flight to Denver. Marco has people watching to ensure he doesn't return. You're safe now. Emma stares at the message for a long time before typing back. Thank you, for everything. The response comes immediately. Sleep well, Emma. Tomorrow is yours again. She does sleep, for the first time in months without nightmares, without jolting awake at every sound in the hallway. And when morning comes, Emma Torres wakes up in a world where David Chen is 500 miles away, and Alessandro Moretti has somehow become the most dangerous and most comforting presence in her life. The complexity of that realization terrifies her, but not enough to make her want to run. Saturday arrives wrapped in the kind of spring sunshine that makes Chicago almost forgive you for surviving another brutal winter. Emma wakes at 10 a.m. late for her, indulgent to light streaming through her apartment windows and the distant sound of the city coming alive below. She lies in bed for a moment, cataloging the absence of fear. No checking her phone for threatening messages. No anxiety about whether today will be the day David shows up somewhere he shouldn't. Just quiet morning light, and the possibility of a day that belongs entirely to her. It feels like freedom. It feels like falling. Her phone shows 3 messages. One from Rosa checking if she's okay after yesterday's situation. Emma makes a mental note to figure out exactly how much the Sarah Bianca staff knows about what happened. One from Dr. Martinez moving their Thursday session to Friday because of a scheduling conflict, and one from an unknown number that she knows before opening is Alessandro. Good morning. Marco confirmed David Chen started work at a design firm in Denver yesterday. He's established there, unlikely to return. You can breathe. Emma reads it twice, parsing the layers of information. Alessandro has people in Denver. Or contacts. or resources that stretch across state lines to ensure a graphic designer stays where he's been relocated. The scope of his reach should alarm her. Instead, she feels that dangerous loosening in her chest again, that sense of being protected by someone who has the actual power to follow through on promises of safety. She types back, "Thank you for the update. I appreciate knowing he's really gone." The response comes within seconds. "Have dinner with me tonight, somewhere that isn't Sarah Bianca. Somewhere we can talk without you being in work mode." Emma's thumb hovers over the keyboard. This is the moment. The choice point where she either pulls back from whatever this is becoming or steps fully into it, knowing exactly what Alessandro Moretti represents and choosing it anyway. Dr. Martinez would tell her to be cautious, to recognize the pattern of escaping one controlling relationship by running towards someone whose entire existence is built on control, to question whether she's confusing protection with possession, safety with dependence. But Dr. Martinez hasn't seen the way Alessandro maintains distance while offering presence, hasn't heard him explicitly give her choice while being clear about his interest, hasn't felt the crucial difference between a man who diminishes you to keep you and a man who protects you so you can grow. "What time?" she types, before she can overthink it. 7. "I'll pick you up. Wear whatever makes you comfortable." Emma spends the afternoon in a state of productive anxiety. She cleans her apartment not because it needs it, but because physical activity helps process the nervous energy humming through her system. She goes through her closet 3 times, trying to decide what comfortable actually means in this context. Not her work uniform, not the yoga pants and oversized sweaters that have become her weekend uniform. Something in between. Something that says she put in effort without trying too hard. She settles on dark jeans that actually fit properly. A deep green silk blouse she bought 2 years ago and never wore because David said it made her look like she was trying too hard to be sophisticated. And ankle boots with enough heel to feel dressed up without being impractical. She leaves her hair down in loose waves, applies makeup that enhances rather than masks. Subtle lipstick, mascara, a touch of blush. When she looks in the mirror, she sees someone she barely recognizes. Not the scared girl who left David's apartment with a duffel bag and nowhere to go. Not the invisible waitress who's perfected the art of moving through spaces without being noticed. Someone else. Someone emerging. At precisely 7 p.m., her phone buzzes. I'm downstairs. Emma grabs her jacket leather, another purchase from the before times that David had criticized as too edgy, too attention-seeking, and heads down 3 flights of stairs with her heart doing complicated things in her chest. The SUV is there, but this time Alessandro stands beside it instead of waiting inside. He's dressed more casually than she's seen him: dark jeans, navy Henley, leather jacket that probably costs more than her monthly rent. Without the formal suits, he looks younger, maybe late 30s instead of the ageless quality that expensive clothing provides, and devastatingly handsome in the golden hour light. Emma, he says her name like a greeting and a question simultaneously. His eyes travel over her appearance, not leering, not possessive, just appreciative in a way that makes her feel seen rather than evaluated. "You look beautiful." "Thank you." She's not used to accepting compliments without deflecting. David had trained her to minimize herself, to apologize for taking up space or drawing attention. "You look different. Good different." "I thought suits might be intimidating for a first date, if that's what we're calling this." He opens the passenger door for her, the front passenger door, she notes, not the back. They're riding together, not him in employer mode while she's being transported. "Is that what we're calling this?" Emma slides into the seat, waits until he's settled behind the wheel to answer. "I don't know what we're calling it. I just know I said yes. That's enough for now." He pulls into traffic with the confident ease of someone intimately familiar with Chicago's streets. "I thought we'd go to Monteverde. It's in the West Loop. Intimate, excellent food, quiet enough for actual conversation. I've heard of it. Never been. Because restaurants like Monteverde charge $70 for pasta and require reservations weeks in advance. They're not places waitresses go on their nights off. The chef is a friend. She makes this brown butter tagliatelle that's worth whatever price she charges. Alessandro navigates around a delivery truck, signals with the kind of careful attention that suggests he follows traffic laws even when no one's watching. "But if you're uncomfortable with Italian considering where you work, we can go somewhere else. I made backup reservations." The thoughtfulness of that detail catches her off guard. "Monteverde is fine. Great, actually. I love Italian food. Just don't usually eat it on my days off because I'm surrounded by it all week." That's what I figured. Hence the backup plan. Korean barbecue in Logan Square, or this phenomenal Vietnamese place in Pilsen that does things with pho that should probably be illegal. Emma laughs, surprising herself. You have a lot of restaurant opinions for someone who eats at Sarah Bianca multiple times a week. I have a lot of restaurant opinions because I eat at Sarah Bianca multiple times a week. And a dozen other places. Food matters when you grow up in a culture that treats meals as sacred time. He glances at her briefly before returning his attention to the road. My grandmother used to say you can tell everything about a person by watching them eat. Whether they savor or rush, share or hoard, appreciate or just consume. What do? You savor when you think no one's watching. During your breaks at Sarah Bianca, when you eat staff meal, you take your time, taste everything. But when you're visible, when customers might see, you eat quickly, efficiently, like you're apologizing for taking the time to nourish yourself. The accuracy of that observation makes Emma's throat tight. David used to criticize how long I took to eat, said I was wasting time, being dramatic about food that was just fuel. David was an idiot. Alessandro's voice is flat, factual. Food is never just fuel. It's culture, history, pleasure. The way we nourish ourselves matters. They lapse into comfortable silence as the city slides past outside. Emma watches Chicago transform from her neighborhood in Pilsen taquerias and murals and corner stores to the gleaming development of the West Loop, where old meatpacking buildings have been converted into trendy restaurants and boutique hotels. Monteverde sits on a corner that glows warm and inviting against the evening sky. Alessandro parks in a spot that looks suspiciously like it was reserved specifically for him. No sign, no marking, just an empty space directly in front of the entrance that no one else has taken. Inside, the restaurant is everything he promised. Intimate without being cramped. Elegant without being pretentious. Edison bulbs cast warm light over exposed brick and marble tables. The open kitchen lets diners watch chefs work. The choreography of professional cooking on display. The hostess greets Alessandro by name, leads them to a corner table that offers privacy while still feeling connected to the restaurant's energy. Wine appears without being ordered, a bottle of something Italian that Alessandro tastes and approves with a nod. I should have asked if you drink wine, he says, pouring her a glass. I'm making assumptions. I drink wine, just not usually bottles that probably cost more than my rent. Emma takes a sip and tries not to react to how good it is, complex, layered. The kind of wine that makes you understand why people build their lives around viticulture. It's a Barolo, 2015. Not my most expensive bottle, but one I think you'll appreciate. He settles back in his chair, studying her with that focused attention that makes her feel like the only person in the room. Tell me something about Emma Torres that I don't already know. You seem to know a lot already. I know facts. When you started working at Sarah Bianca, where you live, your relationship history with David. His expression is serious. But I don't know who you are beyond those data points. What you want, what you dream about, what makes you laugh. Emma takes another sip of wine, buying time to formulate an answer. I wanted to be an architect. That's what I went to school for, University of Illinois, studying architectural design. I love buildings, the way they shape how people move through space, how good design can make someone feel safe or inspired or connected to something larger than themselves. What happened? I met David junior year. He was getting his MBA, seemed so together, so adult compared to the other guys I dated. We graduated, moved in together, and I started working at a firm that designed corporate office spaces, she traces, in the rim of her wine glass with one finger. But David didn't like how much I worked. Late nights, weekend site visits, the occasional business trip. He said I was prioritizing my career over our relationship, so I scaled back, took a less demanding position, then quit entirely when he said we didn't need two incomes and I should focus on being available. Alessandro's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. He isolated you financially. He isolated me in every way that mattered. By the time I realized what was happening, I'd lost touch with friends from school, stopped pursuing architecture. I spent my days in an apartment waiting for him to come home and tell me what mood I was supposed to match. She meets his eyes. The waitressing at Sarah Bianca that was after I left him. I needed income fast. Needed something flexible while I figured out my life. It was supposed to be temporary. That was 11 months ago. Do you want to go back to architecture? I don't know if I can. I've been out of the field too long. My portfolio is 3 years outdated. The contacts I had have moved on. Emma takes a larger sip of wine. Some dreams have expiration dates. Maybe that one expired. Or maybe it's just dormant. Alessandro's voice is thoughtful. Dormant isn't dead. It's waiting for the right conditions to grow again. Before Emma can respond, their server arrives, a young woman who clearly knows Alessandro, who places bread and olive oil between them, with the kind of easy familiarity that suggests he's been here many times before. They order the brown butter tagliatelle he mentioned, plus squid ink tonarelli and a burrata appetizer that arrives looking like art on a plate. As they eat, the conversation flows easier than Emma expected. Alessandro asks questions that dig beneath surface level, and when she turns them back on him, he answers with surprising candor. She learns that he took over his father's business, that careful euphemism for organized crime at 28, younger than traditional succession usually allows, that his father's sudden death from a heart attack left a power vacuum that Alessandro had to fill quickly, or watch everything his family built for 4 generations get consumed by rivals. I didn't want it, he admits, breaking bread between his hands. I was working in restaurant management, had plans to open my own place. Something small, maybe 20 tables, focusing on regional Italian cuisine that no one in Chicago was doing well. Then my father died and suddenly I had 300 people depending on me for their livelihood, for their safety, for the continuation of something that's been part of Chicago's fabric since the 20s. Do you regret it? Taking over? Some days. He's quiet for a moment, considering. The violence required to maintain territory, to keep peace between families, to respond to challenges that part I'll never be comfortable with, even when it's necessary. But the rest of it, taking care of people, ensuring neighborhoods stay safe, providing opportunities for immigrants who can't get traditional financing, that part gives me purpose. That's a generous way to describe organized crime. It's an honest way to describe what I actually do most days. Alessandro meets her eyes without flinching. Yes, there's criminal activity, money laundering through legitimate businesses, gambling operations, loan services that exist outside legal banking. But Emma, most of what I manage is community infrastructure that the city ignores. Businesses that would fail without our investment. People who need protection from threats the police can't or won't address. We're not the mob from movies. We're pragmatic businessmen operating in gray areas because that's where certain problems get solved. Emma should be disturbed by this rationalization. Should hear it as a powerful man justifying violence and criminality. Instead, she hears complexity. Someone who inherited a role and is trying to navigate it with more ethics than the position probably requires. Does that justification help you sleep at night? No. The honesty of it surprises her, but accepting the complexity of it does. I'm not a good man pretending to be bad or a bad man pretending to be good. I'm someone doing difficult things in impossible situations and trying to minimize harm while maximizing benefit. Some nights that's enough. Other nights it's not. The brown butter tagliatelle arrives and Emma takes a bite that makes her understand why Alessandro has strong restaurant opinions. The pasta is perfect hand-rolled, cooked exactly right, coated in butter sauce that's rich without being heavy, finished with sage that adds herbal complexity. Okay, she says after swallowing. That's worth whatever she charges. Alessandro smiles a real smile, not the careful expressions he usually maintains. Chef Sarah is a genius. She trained in Italy for 3 years, came back to Chicago, and couldn't get financing from any traditional bank because she's 29 and female, and wanted to do Italian food in a city full of Italian restaurants, so my family invested. We own 30% of Monteverde. She owns the rest in complete creative control. That's the community infrastructure you mentioned. Exactly. Sarah makes extraordinary food. We get return on investment plus a place I actually enjoy eating. Everyone wins. They talk through the rest of dinner about Chicago's neighborhoods, about the difference between protection and control, about Emma's hesitant dreams of maybe taking architecture courses again, about Alessandro's complicated relationship with legacy and duty. By the time dessert arrives, panna cotta with amarena cherries, Emma realizes 3 hours have passed. The restaurant has mostly emptied, just a few tables of lingering diners, and the kitchen staff beginning their closing routine. I should get you home, Alessandro says, but he doesn't move to signal. For the check. Though I'm reluctant to end this. Me too. The admission comes easier than Emma expected. I didn't know dates could feel like this. Easy. Like I can just be myself without performing or managing someone else's reactions. Emma. He reaches across the table, not touching her but close enough that she could close the distance if she wanted. That's the minimum standard. The baseline. Any man who makes you feel like you need to perform or manage his emotions isn't someone you should be with. David made me feel like that was normal. Like relationships required constant work to keep the other person happy. Relationships require work. But the work should be growing together, not shrinking yourself to fit someone else's expectations. Alessandro's voice is intense. You deserve someone who wants you bigger, brighter, taking up more space, not less. The sincerity in his voice makes Emma's eyes sting. She blinks back the emotion, takes a sip of water to buy herself time to recover. You barely know me. How can you be sure about what I deserve? Because I've watched you for 6 weeks. Watched you handle difficult customers with grace. Support coworkers who were struggling. Move through a demanding job with competence and kindness. Watched you survive an encounter with a man who hurt you and still show up to work the next day. He leans forward slightly. You think I haven't noticed that you give your staff meal to the dishwasher's daughter who sometimes waits in the back for her father to finish his shift? Or that you stay late to help Rosa close when the second bartender calls in sick? Or that you tip out the bussers more generously than anyone else on staff? Emma stares at him. You noticed all that? I notice everything about you. Not creepy, just honest. As from the first week you started working at Sarah Bianca, you moved through that restaurant like you were trying to be invisible. But Emma, you're incapable of being invisible. You shine even when you're trying to dim yourself. The intensity of his gaze is almost too much. Emma looks away, her heart doing complicated things against her ribs. I don't know how to do this. How to date someone like you. Then don't date someone like me. Just date me. Alessandro. The man who reads too much Italian poetry and can't start his day without proper espresso and has strong opinions about pasta shapes. He pauses. The man who thinks you're extraordinary and wants the chance to prove he can be trusted with that knowledge. Emma looks back at him, sees the vulnerability beneath the confidence. This powerful man who commands territory and loyalty is sitting across from her, asking, not demanding, asking for permission to be part of her life. Okay, she says quietly. Let's try this. Whatever this is. Alessandro's smile is like sunrise. That's all I'm asking. He drives her home through late-night Chicago, the city transformed by darkness into something mysterious and beautiful. They don't talk much, just exist comfortably in shared space with Italian jazz playing softly through the car's speakers. When they reach her building, Alessandro parks and walks her to the door like it's still 1950, and courting rituals matter. On the steps, he turns to face her, maintaining careful distance. I had an excellent evening. Me too. Emma fidgets with her keys. Thank you for dinner. And for seeing me. Actually seeing me. I didn't realize how much I needed that until tonight. Emma. He reaches out, tucks a strand of hair behind her ear with gentle fingers. Can I kiss you? The fact that he asks, that he gives her the power to say no even though the tension between them is palpable, makes her decision easy. Yes. He kisses her like she's precious. Like he has all the time in the world and wants to spend it learning exactly what makes her breath catch. His lips are soft against hers, the pressure perfect, not too gentle, not too aggressive, just exactly right. His hand comes up to cup her face, and Emma leans into the touch, into this moment, into the possibility of something that could be beautiful or disastrous or both. When they break apart, both breathing harder, Alessandro rests his forehead against hers briefly. I should go before I forget to be a gentleman. Emma laughs, surprised by the lightness of it. What if I don't want you to be a gentleman? Then I'll remind you that we have time, that this doesn't have to be rushed. He steps back, creating space even though she can see the effort it costs him. I want to do this right with you, Emma. Want to build something that lasts instead of burning through it too fast. It's the right thing to say. The respectful thing. Emma appreciates it even as part of her wishes he'd been less noble. Text me when you get home? She asks. Always. He waits while she unlocks her door, while she steps inside, while she turns back to give him one last look. Sleep well, Emma Torres. You too, Alessandro Moretti. She watches from her window as he drives away, the SUV disappearing into Chicago's night. Then she leans against the door and lets herself feel everything hope and fear, and the particular vertigo of falling for someone who could hurt her more thoroughly than David ever did simply because she's choosing to trust him. Her phone buzzes 20 minutes later. Home safe. Dreaming about brown butter tagliatelle and green silk blouses. Emma smiles. Types back. Dreaming about Italian poetry and proper espresso. His response comes immediately. Tomorrow I'll bring you proper espresso. Your shift starts at noon. I'll be there at 11:30 with coffee that will ruin you for Starbucks forever. That's a bold claim. I'm a bold man. Sleep well. Beautiful. Emma falls asleep with her phone on her pillow and the ghost of his kiss still warming her lips. And for the first time in years, she dreams about futures instead of dwelling on pasts. The next 4 weeks pass, in a blur of stolen moments and careful construction. Alessandro shows up at Sarah Bianca 3 times a week like clockwork, always with proper espresso in a thermos that stays hot through her entire shift. They have dinner twice a week, sometimes at Monteverde, sometimes at the Korean barbecue place in Logan Square, once at the Vietnamese restaurant in Pilsen that does make her rethink everything she knows about pho. He never pushes, never demands more than she's ready to give. When she says she needs a night alone to process, he respects it. When she's overwhelmed by how fast they're moving, he slows down without making her feel guilty about the pace. But he's always there, a constant presence that feels protective without being possessive, interested without being invasive. Emma finds herself opening up in ways she hasn't since before David. Talks about her parents who died in a car accident when she was 23, about the student loans she's still paying off, about the small, dreams she'd tucked away thinking they were impossible, taking architecture courses again, maybe freelancing design work for small businesses, building something that's hers. Why is that impossible? Alessandro asks one Tuesday night, when they're walking along the lakefront after dinner. April in Chicago is finally showing hints of real spring, the air warm enough that Emma doesn't need a heavy coat. Because architecture isn't a hobby. It's a full career that requires connections and portfolios and time I don't have while working full-time at the restaurant. What if you had time? He's not looking at her, just watching the lake lap against the shore. What if you worked at Sarah Bianca 3 shifts a week instead of 5? Would that give you enough hours to take courses, build a portfolio? I can't afford to lose 2 shifts. What if you had freelance design clients who paid enough to make up the difference? Emma stops walking. Alessandro, are you offering to manufacture work? For me? I'm offering to connect you with people who legitimately need design services and can't find affordable options. He turns to face her. I know at least a dozen small business owners who could use branding help, logo design, basic website work. They're not charity cases. They actually need what you can provide. I'm just connecting supply with demand. That's nepotism. That's networking. It's how the professional world actually functions. His expression is serious. Emma, talent without opportunity is just potential that goes to waste. I'm offering you opportunity. What you do with it proves the talent part. She wants to say no, wants to maintain independence, prove she can rebuild her life without help from anyone. But she's also tired of pride getting in the way of practical solutions to real problems. 3 clients, she says finally. Actual small businesses who need actual work. I'll do the first project for each, at a reduced rate to prove myself. After that, as they want to continue working with me, we negotiate fair market rates. Alessandro's smile is approving. Deal. I'll have names and contact information for you by Friday. True to his word, by Friday afternoon, Emma has 3 emails from small business owners, a bakery in Little Italy that needs a logo redesign, a bookstore in Pilsen that wants a website refresh, and a dry cleaning business in Bridgeport that's expanding to 3 locations and needs cohesive branding. She takes the meetings. All 3 business owners are legitimate, have genuine needs, treat her like a professional instead of a favor they're doing for Alessandro. Within 2 weeks, she has contracts signed and deposits paid and work that makes her remember why she loved design in the first place. The creative problem solving, the satisfaction of taking a client's vague vision and transforming it into something concrete and beautiful. The way good design can elevate a business, make customers trust it more, want to, engage with it. She reduces her shifts at Sarah Bianca to 3 per week. The lost income is mostly offset by the freelance work, and the extra time gives her breathing room to actually build towards something instead of just surviving day to day. You're glowing, Rosa comments one Thursday night when Emma comes in for her shift. Like actually glowing. That's the Alessandro effect, isn't it? Emma can't help but smile. Maybe. Also the getting to do work I actually care about effect. It's good to see you happy. Rosa pours wine for a customer, then turns back to Emma. Just be careful, okay? I like Alessandro. He's always been respectful, treats staff well, tips generously, but his world is dangerous. People who get close to him sometimes get caught in crossfire that has nothing to do with them. I know what he is. Knowing and living it are different things. Rosa's expression is concerned, maternal. I just don't want you hurt again. You've been through enough. Emma appreciates the concern even as she feels certain Rosa is overreacting. Alessandro has been nothing but careful with her. Protective without being controlling. Present without being suffocating. Whatever dangers exist in his world, he's clearly committed to keeping her separate from them. That certainty lasts exactly 3 more weeks. It's a Tuesday in May when everything changes. Emma is leaving Sarabianca after a dinner shift, already texting Alessandro that she's heading home when the car pulls up beside her. Not Alessandro's SUV, a sedan dark blue, nondescript with tinted windows that roll down to reveal a man she's never seen before. Maybe 40, with hard eyes and a smile that doesn't reach them. Emma Torres? Every instinct she's developed over the past year screams danger. Emma's hand goes to her phone, finger hovering over Alessandro's number. Who's asking? A friend of David Chen's. He wanted me to deliver a message. Her blood goes cold. David is in Denver. Has been for 2 months. Marco confirmed he's established there, working, living his life 500 miles away. David doesn't have friends who deliver messages. He made new friends. Friends who don't appreciate your boyfriend running him out of Chicago. The man's smile widens. See, David's new employer has connections. Connections that go way above some mid-level mob boss who thinks he runs the South Side. And those connections aren't happy about Alessandro Moretti making moves in territory that doesn't belong to him. Emma's thumb hits the call button. The phone starts to ring as the man continues talking. Tell your boyfriend that David Chen is under new protection now. And if Alessandro wants to keep breathing, he'll understand that some people can't be pushed around like... The phone connects. Alessandro's voice comes through immediately. Emma? I'm outside Sarabianca. There's a man in a blue sedan who says he has a message from David. He's talking about connections and territory. And get inside the restaurant. Now. Alessandro's voice is sharp, commanding. Rosa, grab her and get her inside. I'm 2 minutes away. Emma looks up to see Rosa standing in the restaurant doorway, having apparently heard some of this exchange through windows that were cracked open for spring air. Rosa's face is pale but determined as she moves toward Emma with surprising speed for someone in heels. The man in the sedan sees it happening. His expression shifts from smug to frustrated. You're making a mistake. Both of you. This isn't over. He drives away as Rosa reaches Emma, pulling her back toward Sarabianca, with hands that shake slightly despite her firm grip. Inside, Rosa locks the door behind them and pulls Emma to a table in the back corner. What the hell was that about? I don't know. Emma's hands are shaking too hard to hold her phone properly. He said David has new protection. That Alessandro made moves in territory that doesn't belong to him. Rosa, what does that? It means David found someone powerful enough to challenge Alessandro's authority. Rosa's voice is grim. And they're using you to send a message. The restaurant door bursts open with enough force that the bell clatters against glass. Alessandro strides in with Marco and 2 other men flanking him, all of them radiating the kind of controlled violence that makes the remaining customers instinctively shrink back in their seats. His eyes find Emma immediately. In 3 strides he's across the room, pulling her up from the chair, hands on her shoulders, checking her over with clinical efficiency. Are you hurt? Did he touch you? No, he just talked. Delivered a message about David and connections and territory. Emma's voice is steadier now that Alessandro is here, solid and present, and clearly ready to burn down the world if necessary. Who has connections that scare you? Alessandro and Marco exchange a look that communicates volumes. Then Alessandro says, Roberto Cavallo, Chicago's other major family. They control the north side, we control the south. There's been peace between us for 15 years because we respect boundaries. If David Chen has somehow gotten Cavallo's protection, it means someone on the north side wants to create conflict. Why? Because conflict creates opportunity for territorial expansion. Marco's voice is flat, factual. Cavallo's been testing boundaries for the past year. Small moves, nothing actionable. But if he's backing David Chen, using him as a pawn to provoke Alessandro through you, then this isn't about David at all. Emma finishes. It's about using me to start a war. Yes. Alessandro's hands tighten on her shoulders. Emma, I need you to come with me. Somewhere secure where Cavallo's people can't get to you while I handle this. Handle this how? However is necessary to make clear that you're off limits. His expression is hard, dangerous in a way she's never seen before. Emma, I told you weeks ago that I don't tolerate threats to people under my protection. That extends to being used as pawns in territorial disputes. Cavallo needs to understand that touching you means war. Real war, not the posturing he's been doing. Emma's mind races. This is the reality Rosa warned her about. The danger inherent in being close to someone whose world operates by rules of power and violence. She could walk away right now. Tell Alessandro this is too much, too complicated, too dangerous. But she thinks about the past 2 months. About proper espresso and brown butter tagliatelle and the way Alessandro asks permission before kissing her. About feeling safe for the first time in years. About the architecture projects on her laptop and the possibility of a future she actually wants. Okay, she says. I'll go wherever you think is safest. But Alessandro, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Whatever you do to handle this, you come back. You don't get yourself killed playing territorial. Game's over me. I can't. Her voice breaks. I can't lose this. Lose you. Not after finally finding someone who makes me want to rebuild instead of just survive. Alessandro pulls her against his chest, arms wrapping around her with fierce protectiveness. I'm not going anywhere. But Emma, the next few days are going to be tense. Cavallo needs to be handled carefully, diplomatically if possible. But he also needs to understand completely that you're mine to protect, and anyone who threatens that faces consequences they can't walk away from. How do you make someone understand that? Alessandro's smile is cold and precise. You make an example they can't ignore. You demonstrate power in ways that leave no room for misinterpretation, and you do it fast enough that they don't have time to escalate before you've already won. He kisses her forehead gently, such contrast to the steel in his voice, then looks at Marco. Take Emma to the Evanston property. Full security detail. No one in or out without my explicit approval. Rosa, I need you to tell me everything you know about that man in the sedan. As Marco guides Emma toward the back exit where another SUV is waiting, she hears Alessandro already on the phone. His voice is measured, controlled, but underneath she catches the edge of something lethal. Roberto, we need to talk about respect and boundaries, and about what happens when someone decides my personal life is fair game for territorial posturing. The rest is cut off as Emma is ushered into the SUV. Marco climbs into the driver's seat. 2 more men materialize to flank the vehicle, and they pull away from Sarah Bianca into the Chicago night. Emma watches the city slide past her city, the place she's been rebuilding her life, and realizes with crystalline clarity that everything is about to change. The quiet peace she's found with Alessandro, the carefully constructed stability, and the dream that maybe this could work, despite the complications, all of it, is about to be tested in ways she can't fully anticipate. But as they drive north toward whatever secure property Alessandro maintains in Evanston, Emma finds herself thinking not about fear or escape, but about the fierce protectiveness in Alessandro's voice when he said, "You're mine to protect." Not possession, protection. The difference matters. And whatever comes next, whatever dangers unfold in the complicated war between Chicago's criminal families, Emma knows one thing with certainty. She's not running. Not this time. Not from this. She's already lost too much to fear. Already survived too much to let someone else's power plays dictate her choices. If Alessandro Moretti is going to war to keep her safe, then Emma Torres is going to trust him enough to let him. And when the dust settles, because it will settle, one way or another they'll figure out what comes next together. That decision made, Emma settles back against the leather seat and watches Chicago disappear behind her, heading toward whatever sanctuary Alessandro has prepared, ready to weather whatever storm is coming. Because some things are worth fighting for. Some people are worth the risk. And Alessandro Moretti, with his Italian poetry and proper espresso and fierce protection wrapped in careful respect, is absolutely worth it. The Evanston property is not what Emma expects. She'd imagined something fortress-like, high walls, security cameras, the aesthetic of a compound designed for siege warfare. Instead, Marco pulls up to a 3-story brownstone in a quiet residential neighborhood, 2 blocks from Northwestern University. Trees line the street, their spring leaves creating dappled shadows under streetlights. It looks like the kind of place where professors live, where graduate students rent apartments, where life happens at a pace measured in academic semesters rather than territorial disputes. This is the safe house? Emma asks as Marco kills the engine. One of them. Alessandro owns 4 properties in Evanston. This one's his favorite residential neighborhood, good sightlines, and close enough to the university that extra security doesn't look out of place. Marco gestures to a man in a Northwestern hoodie standing on the corner with a coffee cup. That's Tony. Former Marine, been with us 8 years. The woman walking her dog 2 houses down is Elena. The couple sitting on their porch across the street are actually sitting on Alessandro's porch. He owns that property too. He uses it for overflow security when necessary. Emma looks closer and realizes what she'd taken for normal neighborhood life is actually an intricate security web. The dog walker's route keeps her positioned where she can see both ends of the street. The couple on the porch has a sight line to every approaching vehicle. Tony with his coffee cup stands exactly where he can intervene if anyone approaches the brownstone. How many people are watching this place right now? 12 within a 2-block radius. Another 6 monitoring remotely through camera feeds. Marco opens his door, and immediately 2 more men appear from somewhere Emma didn't notice, flanking the vehicle. Alessandro doesn't take chances with people he cares about. And Emma, he cares about you more than he's cared about anyone in the 12 years I've worked for him. The weight of that statement settles over her as Marco guides her up the brownstone's front steps. Inside, the space is beautiful hardwood floors, exposed brick, furniture that's clearly expensive but comfortable rather than ostentatious. Art on the walls that looks original, not prints. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with actual books, their spines worn from reading. Make yourself comfortable, Marco says, gesturing around the open-concept first floor. Kitchen's fully stocked. There's a bedroom upstairs that Alessandro asked me to prepare for you. Fresh linens, toiletries, some clothes in your size that should work until this thing is resolved. Wi-Fi password is on the counter. You have my number, Alessandro's number, and Tony's number if you need anything. How long am I staying here? Depends on how quickly Alessandro can resolve the situation with Cavallo. Marco's expression is carefully neutral. Could be 48 hours, could be a week. But Emma, you're safe here. Cavallo would have to get through 12 trained professionals to reach you, and that's not happening. After Marco leaves, though, Leaves is generous since she can see him take up position in the SUV, parked directly in front of the brownstone. Emma explores the space. The kitchen is indeed fully stocked, not just with basics, but with the kind of ingredients that suggest someone who actually cooks lives here. Fresh pasta in the fridge, San Marzano tomatoes in the pantry, a bottle of olive oil that probably costs more than her weekly grocery budget. Upstairs, the bedroom Marco mentioned is a sanctuary, king-sized bed with linens that feel like Egyptian cotton, blackout curtains, a reading chair positioned near the window with a view of the tree-lined street. The closet contains clothes in her exact size: jeans, sweaters, underwear, still in packaging from stores she recognizes as expensive but not ostentatious. Alessandro or Marco must have researched her sizes, made specific purchases. The level of preparation is both comforting and slightly overwhelming. The attached bathroom has toiletries from brands she's never been able to afford. French skincare products, professional-grade hair care, makeup that's probably worth more than everything in her apartment combined. A robe hangs on the back of the door, plush and white, and hotel quality. Emma showers, changes into soft pajama pants and a t-shirt from the clothes provided, and settles onto the bed with her phone. It's nearly 11 p.m. She should be exhausted. It's been a long shift followed by a threatening encounter, followed by extraction to a safe house. But adrenaline keeps her wired, mind racing through implications and possibilities. Her phone buzzes. Alessandro, you settled in? Marco said you seemed calm, but I know this is a lot to process. Emma types back. I'm okay. The brownstone is beautiful. You have good taste in safe houses. I have good taste in everything. She can practically hear the slight arrogance in his voice, including women who are too brave for their own good and too stubborn to run when common sense suggests they should. Is that what common sense suggests? That I should run? Common sense suggests you should be terrified and putting distance between yourself and a situation that just became significantly more dangerous. A pause, then. I'm grateful you're not listening to common sense. What's happening with Cavallo? We're meeting tomorrow morning. Neutral ground, mediator present. Roberto and I are going to have a very clear conversation about boundaries and respect, and what happens when someone uses civilians to make territorial points. Emma's stomach clenches. Is that safe? Meeting with someone who just threatened me through one of his people? Nothing about my world is truly safe, Emma, but this meeting is as close as it gets. Roberto knows that harming me during a formal sit-down would start a war he can't win. And I know the same about harming him. It's mutually assured destruction, which is sometimes the best guarantee of safety available. That's a depressing way to look at conflict resolution. Welcome to my world. Another pause. Emma, I need you to understand something. What happened tonight, the threat, the implicit warning, that's Cavallo testing boundaries, seeing if he can rattle me by threatening someone I care about. The meeting tomorrow is where I make clear that particular strategy won't work. How do you make that clear? By demonstrating that I'm willing to go further than he is. That protecting you isn't a weakness he can exploit. It's a line he crosses at his own peril. Roberto's smart. He'll understand the calculation. He'll back off. And if he doesn't, the response takes longer this time. When it comes, Emma can feel the weight of it. Then things escalate in ways I'd prefer to avoid but won't hesitate to pursue if necessary. Emma, I won't let anyone hurt you. Not David Chen, not Roberto Cavallo, not anyone. That's not negotiable. Emma stares at the message, parsing layers of meaning. Alessandro is essentially saying he'll start a war, if that's what keeping her safe requires. The scope of that commitment terrifies, and moves her in equal measure. I don't want you starting wars over me. Too late. The moment I decided you mattered, you became worth fighting for. That's not something you get to argue with. That's incredibly arrogant. Yes, it's also true. Sleep, Emma. Tomorrow this gets resolved and you come home. This brownstone or my apartment, wherever you feel safest. Though I'm hoping eventually the answer to that question is, with you. The vulnerability in that statement makes Emma's throat tight. One crisis at a time, Alessandro. Fair enough. Good night, beautiful. Dream of better things than territorial disputes and men who need lessons in respect. Good night. Emma sets her phone aside and lies back against pillows that smell like lavender and expensive fabric softener. Through the window, she can see Tony still standing on the corner with his coffee. Elena walking her dog for the third time. The couple on the porch across the street, settled in for what's apparently an all-night surveillance shift. 12 people within 2 blocks, all positioned to ensure nothing, and no one reaches her without going through them first. The level of protection should feel suffocating. Instead, it feels like being valued, like someone finally caring enough to marshal resources in service of her safety. She thinks about David, who'd claimed to love her while systematically isolating and hurting her. Then she thinks about Alessandro, who's marshalling an army to protect her, while simultaneously giving her space to choose her own level of involvement. The difference is everything. Emma falls asleep sometime after midnight, lulled by the knowledge that outside this brownstone, in meeting rooms and through phone calls and via channels she doesn't fully understand, Alessandro Moretti is waging a very different kind of war. One fought with words and power plays and strategic demonstrations of force, rather than actual violence. She dreams of architecture buildings she's designing, spaces that make people feel safe and inspired, and connected to something larger than themselves. In the dream, Alessandro is there, watching her work with those dark eyes that see everything, smiling that rare smile that transforms his face from dangerous to devastating. When she wakes at 7 a.m., to spring sunshine streaming through the blackout curtains she forgot to fully close, Emma has 3 messages waiting. From Marco, morning, coffee and breakfast are in the kitchen. Alessandro's meeting with Cavallo starts at 9, should be resolved by noon. From Rosa, heard what happened. You okay? Everyone at Sarah Bianca is worried about you. And from Alessandro, sent at 6:30 a.m. Good morning. Today we end this. Then I'm taking you to dinner somewhere that doesn't involve territorial politics or men who need lessons in boundaries. Wear something beautiful. We're celebrating. Emma reads that last message 3 times, noting the confidence in it. Not, if we resolve this, but when. Not, hopefully we can have dinner, but a statement of intent that treats the outcome as foregone conclusion. She types back, what if the meeting doesn't go well? What if Cavallo doesn't back down? The response comes immediately. He will. Trust me. The morning passes with agonizing slowness. Emma makes coffee from beans that are probably imported from some small Italian village, eats breakfast while watching news coverage that makes no mention of criminal. Families meeting to discuss territorial boundaries, because that's not how this world works. Everything happens in shadows, in private rooms, in conversations the public never hears about. At 9 a.m., she imagines Alessandro walking into whatever neutral ground they've chosen. She pictures him in one of his perfect suits, dark hair styled precisely, moving with that controlled grace that makes people instinctively defer to his authority. At 9:30, her phone rings. Not Alessandro. Marco. Emma's heart lurches. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. Actually, it's better than fine. Marco sounds satisfied, maybe even slightly amused. The meeting's wrapping up early. Alessandro wanted me to update you. Cavallo's backing down. Completely. David Chen is being sent back to Denver with explicit instructions that he's no longer under Cavallo's protection. And Roberto's offering reparations for the disrespect shown to Alessandro through threatening you. Reparations? Territorial. Concession. There's a strip of businesses on the border between North and South Side that's been contested for years. Cavallo's ceding them to Alessandro's control, plus a formal apology delivered in front of the commission. The commission? Ruling body of Chicago's families. 5 members total, Alessandro and Cavallo included. Having to apologize in front of them is significant public admission that he overstepped, that Alessandro's authority was violated and needed to be redressed. Marco pauses. Emma, this is the best possible outcome. No violence, no escalation, just clear re-establishment of boundaries and respect. Why did Cavallo back down so easily? Because Alessandro made it clear that the alternative was war. Real war, not posturing. And Cavallo did the math. Whatever advantage he thought he'd gain by provoking Alessandro wasn't worth the cost of actual conflict. Marco's voice is serious now. Also, Alessandro brought documentation. Evidence of other boundary violations Cavallo's made over the past year that technically violate the territorial agreements all the families signed. Threatening you was just the most recent example. Alessandro essentially presented a case that Cavallo's been systematically undermining the peace, and if the commission investigated, Roberto would come out looking very bad. So Alessandro had leverage. Alessandro always has leverage. He just doesn't use it unless necessary. A car door slams in the background of Marco's call. We're heading back now. Should be there in 20 minutes. Alessandro wants to see you himself. Make sure you understand this is over. You're safe now, Emma. Completely safe. After Marco hangs up, Emma sits in the Brownstones' beautiful living room and processes what just happened. A threat that seemed enormous last night has been neutralized before lunch through strategic maneuvering and carefully applied pressure. No violence, no dramatic confrontation. Just 2 powerful men having a conversation that reshaped territorial boundaries and sent a message that's apparently clear to everyone in their world. This is what Alessandro does. This is how he operates. Not through mindless aggression, but through calculated demonstrations of power. Through being so thoroughly prepared that his opponents choose surrender over engagement. 23 minutes later, the SUV pulls up outside. Emma watches from the window as Alessandro emerges, still wearing the charcoal suit from this morning's meeting, looking composed and utterly in control. He says something to Marco, who nods and stays with the vehicle while Alessandro walks up the Brownstones' front steps. Emma opens the door before he can knock. They stand there for a moment, just looking at each other. The morning's tension finally releasing now that he's here, solid and present and clearly unharmed. It's over, he says simply. David Chen is no longer a threat. Cavallo won't be making moves against my territory or the find. People I protect. You're safe, Emma. She should have questions. Should want details about the meeting, about the territorial concessions, about what reparations actually mean in this context. Instead, she steps forward and wraps her arms around him, pressing her face against his chest, breathing in the scent of expensive cologne, and something uniquely Alessandro. His arms come around her immediately, holding her with fierce protectiveness. You were scared, terrified, she admits against his shirt. Not for me, for you. I kept imagining all the ways that meeting could go wrong, all the ways you could get hurt trying to protect me from a situation that's only dangerous because I'm connected to you. Emma. He pulls back enough to tilt her face up, his hands gentle on her jaw. The danger isn't because you're connected to me. The danger existed in men like David Chen and Roberto Cavallo regardless. I just gave you a shield against it. And yes, sometimes that shield requires me to walk into difficult meetings and have complicated conversations. But that's my choice. My world. My responsibility. You're not a burden to protect. You're someone I want to protect. Why me? The question she's been carrying for weeks finally emerges. You could have anyone, Alessandro. Women who understand your world, who are already part of it, who wouldn't need protecting from territorial disputes and ex-boyfriends with dangerous connections. Why choose someone as complicated as me? Because you're not complicated. You're real. His thumbs brush her cheekbones gently. Every woman I've dated who was already part of this world, they wanted the power, the status, the money. They performed affection and loyalty while calculating advantage. But you, Emma Torres, you walked into my life wearing a waitress uniform and covering trauma you thought no one would notice. You didn't want anything from me. didn't even want to be noticed. And when I offered protection, you questioned it. When? I offered help with your architecture work. You negotiated terms that protected your independence. You're not with me for what I can provide. You're with me despite what I am. That's worth everything. Emma's eyes sting with tears she's too stubborn to let fall. I am falling in love with you. I didn't mean to. It's probably too fast and definitely too complicated, but Alessandro, I'm falling and I don't know how to stop. His smile is sunrise and salvation and every beautiful thing she's been afraid to hope for. Then don't stop. Fall. I'll catch you. Emma, I've been in love with you since you stood in a courthouse and told a judge exactly what David Chen did without minimizing or apologizing. Since you sat across from me at Monteverde and talked about dreams you thought were expired. Since you kissed me on your apartment steps and looked at me like I was someone worth trusting despite every reason you had to protect yourself. He kisses her, then not gentle like their first kiss, but with the desperation of someone who's spent the morning navigating dangerous conversations and wants to remind himself what he was fighting for. Emma kisses him back with equal intensity, pouring weeks of careful restraint and growing feelings, and the particular relief of knowing that the threats are neutralized, that they're safe, that this impossible thing between them might actually have a chance to grow. When they break apart, both breathing hard, Alessandro rests his forehead against hers. I promised you dinner tonight, somewhere celebratory. But Emma, I need you to understand something first. My world doesn't stop being dangerous just because we resolved this particular crisis. There will be other situations, other threats, other moments when being with me means accepting that security is a constant consideration, rather than an occasional necessity. I know. And you're okay with that? With a life that includes security details and strategic meetings, and the awareness that I operate in spaces the law doesn't always reach? Emma thinks about the past 2 months, about proper espresso and architecture clients and the way Alessandro asks permission before crossing boundaries, about feeling safe for the first time in years, about dreaming about futures instead of just surviving presents. I'm okay with it because the alternative is walking away from the best thing that's happened to me in years, maybe ever. She cups his face in her hands, making him look at her directly. Alessandro, I spent 2 years with someone who made me smaller every day, who hurt me and called it love, who isolated me and called it protection. You make me bigger. You encourage my dreams, support my independence, protect me while simultaneously ensuring I maintain agency over my own life. That's not something I'm walking away from just because it comes with complications. Even if those complications include men like Cavallo testing boundaries, ex-boyfriends finding new allies, the constant awareness that threats can materialize from unexpected directions. Even then, because Alessandro, I'd rather face those challenges with you than face the mundane cruelty of a normal life without you. His kiss this time is softer, sweeter, full of promise and possibility. Then let's go celebrate. But first, we're stopping at your apartment so you can pick up whatever clothes you want for the weekend. The weekend? I'm taking you somewhere. Not the Evanston brownstone. Somewhere just for us. Without security hovering and territorial politics and anything that isn't just you and me figuring out what this becomes. Alessandro tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. That is, if you want to spend a weekend with me. Where are we going? There's a house in Door County. My grandfather built it in the 50s, passed it down to my father. Now it's mine. Right on the water, private beach, close enough to town for good restaurants, but far enough that we won't run into anyone who knows me professionally. His expression is hopeful, vulnerable in a way she rarely sees. I want to show you the place where I go when I need to remember who I am beyond the business and the territory and all the roles I play. Want to see if the woman I'm falling in love with likes the man I am when all those roles are stripped away. Emma's answer is immediate. Yes. Absolutely yes. They stop at Emma's apartment in Pilsen so she can pack a bag clothes for a weekend away. Toiletries, her laptop because even during romantic getaways, she has client work to manage. Alessandro waits in the SUV with Marco, giving her privacy, which she appreciates more than he probably realizes. As she's zipping her bag closed, her phone rings. Rosa, please tell me you're okay, Rosa says immediately. The whole restaurant is talking about what happened. Marco came by this morning and told us Alessandro handled it, that you're safe, but I needed to hear your voice. I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. Alessandro resolved everything with Cavallo. David's being sent back to Denver with no protection, no support, no reason to ever come back to Chicago. Emma sinks onto her bed, relief washing through her again. It's over, Rosa. Really over. And you and Alessandro? I don't know what we are exactly, but we're something good. Something real. Emma can hear the smile in her own voice. He's taking me away for the weekend. Door County, apparently. His family's house there. Rosa is quiet for a long moment. Emma, I'm happy for you. Genuinely. But sweetie, taking you to his family home, introducing you to that part of his life that's significant in his world. That means you're not just someone he's dating casually. You're someone he's serious about. I know. And Rosa, I'm serious about him too. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But it's also the first time since David that I've felt like myself. Like I'm building towards something instead of just surviving. Then I'm glad. And Emma, for what it's worth, I've known Alessandro for 15 years through his visits to Sarah Bianca. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. That man is completely gone for you. Just be careful with each other's hearts, okay? You've both been through enough. After they hang up, Emma finishes packing and heads downstairs where Alessandro waits. He takes her bag without comment, stows it in the SUV, then opens the passenger door for her. Ready? He asks. Ready. The drive to Door County takes just under 4 hours, traffic thinning as they leave Chicago's urban sprawl behind for smaller towns, and eventually, the rural beauty of Wisconsin's peninsula. Alessandro handles the driving himself, no Marco, no security detail visible. Though Emma suspects there are probably people tracking their route remotely. They talk the whole way. About Emma's architecture projects. The bakery logo is almost finished. The bookstore website is. Entering second-round revisions. The dry cleaning business owner keeps calling her with new ideas that are gradually expanding the scope beyond the original contract. About Alessandro's legitimate businesses. He owns pieces of 7 restaurants throughout Chicago, 2 commercial real estate developments, and apparently a venture capital firm that invests in immigrant-owned businesses that traditional banks won't touch. That's the part I wish I could advertise, he says as they cross into Wisconsin. The investments, the businesses we've helped start, the families who can buy homes because we provided financing when no one else would. But it's all tied to the less legitimate operations, so it exists in the same shadows. Does that bother you? That people don't see the good parts? Some days more than others. But Emma, I didn't choose this life to be celebrated for it. I chose it because my family needed someone to take over, and I was the only option. Whatever good I can do within, that framework is bonus, not obligation. They reach the Door County house, just as the sun is beginning its descent toward the horizon. The property is stunning. A cedar and glass structure that seems to grow organically from the landscape, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows that frame views of Lake Michigan stretching infinite and blue to the horizon. The beach Alessandro mentioned is private, accessible through a stone path that winds through native grasses and wildflowers just beginning their spring bloom. Inside, the house is warm and lived in despite being a vacation property. Photos on the walls show Alessandro at various ages, a teenager with his father, a young man graduating from college, recent shots of him at restaurant openings and family gatherings. The furniture is comfortable, the kitchen clearly designed for actual cooking rather than just aesthetics. My grandmother decorated this place, Alessandro explains, setting Emma's bag down in the master bedroom. She had strong opinions about vacation homes needing to be comfortable rather than impressive. Said if you can't put your feet up and drink wine in your bare socks, what's the point? Emma laughs, imagining an Italian grandmother dictating interior design principles. She sounds wonderful. She was, sharp as hell until the day she died at 93. She's the one who taught me that power without compassion is just tyranny, that taking care of people is what separates leaders from bullies. He crosses to the windows, looking out at the lake. She would have liked you, would have said you have spine, which was her highest compliment. They spend the evening on the deck, cooking dinner together, Alessandro's pasta from scratch, Emma handling a salad that's more elaborate than anything she usually attempts. They drink wine from the bottle without bothering with proper glasses, talking and laughing and existing in the kind of easy companionship that should take months to develop, but has somehow arrived fully formed. After dinner, they walk the beach barefoot, spring air still cold enough that Emma's grateful when Alessandro wraps an arm around her shoulders. The sun has set, leaving the sky painted in shades of purple and pink that reflect off the lake's surface. Thank you for this, Emma says quietly. For bringing me here. For showing me this part of your life. It means something. It means everything, Alessandro corrects. Emma, I've owned this house for 12 years and I've never brought anyone here. Not dates, not even close friends. This place is where I come to remember who I am when I'm not being Alessandro Moretti, head of the family, decision maker, authority figure. It's just mine, and now it's ours, if you want it to be. Emma stops walking, turns to face him directly. The last light of sunset catches in his dark hair, throws his features into sharp relief. He's so beautiful it almost hurts to look at him, not just physically, though he's devastatingly handsome, but in the way he looks at her, like she's precious, like she matters. I want everything with you, she says, voice steady despite the enormity of the admission. The complicated parts, and the simple parts, the dangerous world you navigate and the quiet moments like this. I want to build something real with you, Alessandro. Something that lasts. Then we will. He pulls her close, and they stand there on a private beach in Door County, while the sky darkens and stars begin to emerge. We'll build it carefully, honestly, respecting what each of us needs to feel safe and valued. And Emma, I promise you this. Whatever we create together, it will be based on choice. Every day you'll have the option to stay or go, to be part of this or step back. I'll never trap you the way David did. Never use love as an excuse for control. I know. That's why I'm not afraid. They kiss as the first stars appear, and it feels like a beginning rather than continuation. Like they're standing at the threshold of something profound and choosing consciously to step through together. That night, in Alessandro's bed, with lake sounds drifting through open windows and his arms secure around her, Emma sleeps without nightmares for the first time in 3 years. No dreams of David's violence, no anxiety about being followed or watched or threatened. Just peace, just safety, just the steady rhythm of Alessandro's breathing and the knowledge that she's exactly where she belongs. Sunday morning arrives with birdsong and sunshine. Emma wakes before Alessandro, takes a moment to watch him sleep, face relaxed, the hard edges that define him when he's navigating his business world softened into something gentler. She carefully extracts herself from the bed and pads downstairs to the kitchen, where she makes coffee in the French press she finds in the cabinet. She's standing on the deck watching the lake when Alessandro joins her, wearing nothing but sleep pants and looking devastating in the morning light. You made coffee. I wanted to do something useful, and your view is extraordinary. It is, but he's not looking at the lake. He's looking at her. Emma, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in his voice makes her stomach flip. That sounds ominous. Not ominous, just important. He takes her hand, laces their fingers together. When I took over my father's business 12 years ago, I made myself a promise. That I wouldn't let the complications of my world touch anyone I loved. That I'd keep relationships surface level, casual. Because deep connection meant vulnerability. Meant giving rivals leverage they could use against me. Emma's heart hammers. Alessandro, let me finish. His thumb traces circles on her palm. I kept that promise for 12 years. Dated occasionally but never seriously. Kept everyone at arm's length. Told myself it was necessary for their safety and my effectiveness as a leader. Then you walked into Sarah Bianca 11 months ago wearing an apron and trauma you tried to hide, and every rule I'd made myself started breaking. I noticed you immediately. Started coming to the restaurant more often just to watch you work. Told myself it was curiosity. That I just wanted to understand what made someone move through the world with that particular combination of competence and fear. When did you know it was more than curiosity? The night I saw you flinch when that customer raised his hand. The way your entire body reacted like it expected violence. Something in me just... He pauses, searching for words. Broke isn't the right word. Activated, maybe. Every protective instinct I have focused entirely on you in that moment. And I realized that all my rules about keeping distance, maintaining safety through emotional removal, they were already irrelevant. Because Emma, I was already in too deep to protect myself by staying away. Emma's eyes sting. That's the night that started all of this. No. That's the night I stopped fighting what had been building for months. The night I let myself acknowledge that you'd become the exception to every rule I'd made about relationships and vulnerability and risk. He pulls her closer, his free hand coming up to cup her face. And Emma, I don't regret it. Not the complications with David or Cavallo, not the security measures or the difficult conversations. Because what I have with you, this real, honest, complicated thing, it's worth every challenge that comes with it. I love you. The words come easily, no hesitation. I'm in love with you, Alessandro Moretti. With the man who reads Dante and makes perfect pasta, and protects people without possessing them. with the complicated reality of who you are and what your life requires. All of it. I love you too. His kiss is soft, reverent. And Emma, I want you to know this weekend is a beginning, not an ending. When we go back to Chicago tomorrow, we're going back to complicated reality. But we're going back together, building something that works for both of us. What does that look like practically? It looks like you keeping your apartment because you need space that's entirely yours. It looks like me respecting when you need distance versus when you want closeness. It looks like honest conversations about security needs without making you feel suffocated by protection. It looks like supporting your architecture work without making you feel obligated. He brushes hair back from her face. It looks like building a partnership between two people who've both been hurt before and are choosing to trust despite that history. That sounds perfect. It sounds like work, but good work. The kind that builds something lasting instead of just burning hot and collapsing. They spend the rest of Sunday in comfortable domesticity. Alessandro teaches Emma to make fresh mozzarella, which involves more laughing and flour throwing than successful cheese making. They walk into the nearby town, explore the galleries and shops that cater to Door County's summer tourist population just beginning to arrive, have lunch at a cafe where no one knows Alessandro as anything other than a handsome man on a date with his girlfriend. That evening, they sit on the deck, watching the sunset with wine and cheese and bread, talking about futures that no longer feel impossible. I want you to meet my mother's family, Alessandro says. My uncle, my cousins, the parts of my life that have nothing to do with the business. I want them to know you're real, that this is serious. I'd like that. And Alessandro, I want you to meet my friends, the ones David isolated me from. I've been slowly reconnecting, but I haven't told them about you yet because I wasn't sure how to explain. She gestures vaguely. All of this. You tell them I'm someone you're dating who happens to have a complicated job. That's accurate without requiring you to explain things they don't need to know. He takes her hand. Emma, you're not responsible for managing how people react to my world. You're only responsible for deciding if you can live with it. And if you can, the rest is just details we figure out together. I can live with it. I want to live with it. With you. That night, lying in bed with lake sounds and Alessandro's steady breathing as soundtrack, Emma thinks about the past 6 months. About arriving in Chicago broken and scared. About rebuilding herself piece by careful piece. About the shy waitress who learned to take up space again. About the night a customer raised his hand and she flinched, and a Mafia boss saw her trauma and decided she was worth protecting. About how that protection evolved into something deeper. Respect and trust, and eventually love. Built on a foundation of honesty rather than illusion. She'd walked into Sarah Bianca 11 months ago thinking she was just surviving, just getting through days until some undefined point when life would feel manageable again. Instead, she'd found herself, found her voice, found the courage to dream about architecture and independence and futures that belonged to her. And somewhere along the way, she'd found Alessandro Moretti. Or maybe he'd found her. Either way, they'd found each other. That seemed like the most improbable kind of miracle. The kind you couldn't plan for or predict. The kind that only happened when trauma and timing and two people choosing to be brave all aligned perfectly. Emma falls asleep, smiling, Alessandro's arm secure around her waist, the sound of Lake Michigan whispering against the shore outside. Tomorrow they'd go back to Chicago, back to complicated reality and security measures, and the constant navigation required when you love someone whose world operates by different rules. But tonight, in this house where Alessandro comes to remember who he is beyond the business and the territory, Emma Torres is simply a woman in love. A woman who flinched at a raised hand and froze a room full of people with that single involuntary response. A woman who survived violence and isolation, and the slow erosion of self that comes from loving someone who uses love as a weapon. A woman who learned is still learning that protection and possession aren't the same thing, that love can make you bigger instead of smaller. That the right person will encourage you to take up space instead of demanding you diminish yourself. Emma Torres is that woman, and Alessandro Moretti is the man who saw her flinch, recognized the trauma underneath, and decided she deserved better than fear. He'd given her safety, then he'd given her space. Then, impossibly, he'd given her love wrapped in respect and autonomy, and the kind of fierce protection that comes without chains attached. That's the miracle. Not that she survived, not that she rebuilt, but that she found someone who understood that protection means creating space for growth, not building cages and calling them sanctuary. The lake whispers against the shore. Alessandro's breathing stays steady. And Emma Torres, architect and waitress and survivor and woman in love, sleeps dreamlessly through a night unmarked by fear, because she's finally, impossibly, completely safe, not because someone made her small enough to hide, but because someone saw her at her most vulnerable and decided she was worth defending exactly as she was. That makes all the difference. That makes everything different. That makes this complicated and imperfect and real exactly what she needed. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel.